Have you ever felt like, no matter how close you get to him physically, emotionally, even spiritually, there's still a wall you can't break through? As if you're holding his hand, but his soul is somewhere else, hidden, locked behind a door you don't have the key to. Most women think love is about showing up, giving more, being enough. But what if the real path to his heart isn't through his mind, or even his heart, but through the parts of him he doesn't even understand himself? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That quote isn't just psychology. It's a map. Because the reason you can't reach him, it's not you. It's the parts of him that even he doesn't dare to look at. You see, every man carries within him a hidden world. A place made of wounds he never speaks of, fears he never names, and desires he doesn't fully understand. And unless you learn how to enter that space note with control, not with seduction, but with presence, you will always feel like you're competing with something invisible. This is not about becoming someone you're not. It's about understanding what no one ever taught you, that love isn't about being chosen. It's about being able to see someone for who they are when they're not performing. The women who truly touch a man's soul don't do it by being perfect. They do it by being real enough to meet him where he hides. In his silence, in his shadows, in the chaos he can't put into words. And the truth is, he's not afraid of you. He's afraid of what you might awaken in him. Because when a man meets a woman who sees through the masks, the games, the bravado, he doesn't just feel loved, he feels exposed. And for many men, that is more terrifying than being alone. But if you can hold that space, if you can stay when he trembles, when he retreats, when he doubts, you don't just become someone he wants. You become someone he remembers, even when he tries to forget. So before you try to get closer, ask yourself this: are you willing to see the parts of him that even he runs from? Because that's where his soul lives. And that's where love begins. Most women fall in love with the version of a man that he shows to the world. The confident one, the driven one, the charming one. But the women who truly reach his soul, who become unforgettable, are the ones who love the version of him that even he doesn't want to see. Carl Jung called it the shadow. It's not just his flaws or his mistakes. It's the part of him that he hides because he believes it makes him unlovable. His fear of failure, his guilt from the past, his quiet belief that no matter what he achieves, he is not enough. You won't find his shadow in the words he speaks. You'll find it in the silence between those words. In the way he changes the subject when it gets too real. In how he jokes when he is actually in pain. In how he pulls away right when you're getting close. Many women take that personally. They think, he doesn't love me, or I'm not enough for him. But what if his distance is not a rejection of you, but a defense against the parts of himself he has not yet faced? Here's the truth. A man will not let you see his darkness until he believes you won't run from it. When he was a boy, someone probably told him, directly or indirectly, that showing pain was weakness, that being sensitive was dangerous, that no one would stay if he wasn't strong. So he built a mask, a strong one. And now, as a man, he only lets people close enough to admire the mask, not to see behind it. But here's the paradox. What he craves most is someone who sees behind the mask and stays. Not to fix him, not to pity him, just to witness him. To say, without words, I see you, even this part, especially this part, and I'm still here. That kind of love is rare. Because it requires you to be deeply rooted in yourself first, to not need his light to validate your worth, to be okay sitting in the dark with him, without fear or agenda. When a woman can do that, something in him starts to shift. He might not say it out loud, he might even resist it, but deep down, his soul remembers. Because for the first time, he doesn't feel alone inside his own mind. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who had built a successful career, had the admiration of many, and dated women who praised his ambition. But inside, he was exhausted, haunted by a sense of emptiness he couldn't explain. He met a woman who didn't chase his achievements. She didn't flatter him. She asked him questions he had no answers to. When he went silent, she didn't panic. When he pulled away, she stayed near, not pushing, just present. Over time, he started telling her things he had never told anyone. About the night he cried alone after losing his father. About the shame he felt when he didn't protect his younger brother. About the fear that his success was just a distraction from the parts of him he was too afraid to face. And through it all, she didn't offer solutions. She didn't try to heal him. She just listened, held his words like fragile glass, and let him be human. That's how she touched his soul. Because loving someone's light is easy. Everyone loves confidence, charm, and smiles. But when you love someone's darkness not as a project, not as a burden, but as a sacred part of who they are, that is the love that penetrates. You're not supposed to fix his shadow. You're supposed to witness it without judgment. Jung believed that integration of the shadow is what leads to wholeness. And the only way a man can begin that process is through trust. He must feel safe enough to expose what he has spent years hiding. So how do you create that kind of safety? You stop reacting. You start responding. When he shuts down, instead of panicking or pulling away, stay steady. Instead of making it about you, why isn't he opening up to me? Ask, what might he be protecting in himself right now? When he shows anger, see if there's pain beneath it. When he's quiet, ask yourself if he's trying to manage something inside without hurting you. Become curious about his silence. Not desperate, not controlling, just curious. And most importantly, do your own shadow work, because you can't hold space for someone else's pain if you haven't met your own. This is not easy. It's not romantic in the way movies show love, but it's real and it's rare. And if you can love a man in this way, you will not just be a part of his story, you will become part of his transformation. A man never forgets the woman who saw his shadow and did not flinch. So before you ask, how do I make him love me? Ask, can I hold space for the parts of him that no one clapped for? Because the more he sees that you're not afraid of his shadow, the more he will begin to step into the light. Not because you pulled him there, but because he finally believes someone will still be there, even if he doesn't have it all together. That is how you begin to touch his soul. Not by filling his void, but by sitting beside it and saying, I see you, all of you. There is something inside every man that he does not talk about. Not because he is hiding it from the world, but because he doesn't even have the language for it. Carl Jung called this part of the male psyche the anima, inner feminine. It is not about softness or weakness. It is the emotional, intuitive, feeling side of him that often remains buried beneath layers of armor. Most men have never been taught to connect with their anima. From a young age, they are rewarded for logic, control, strength, and detachment. They are warned against emotion, vulnerability, and tenderness. So the anima becomes a stranger living in the basement of their Sula ghost they carry but rarely acknowledge. But here's what no one tells you. The way a man loves is shaped by the way he relates to his anima. If he rejects her, he may see women as threats or temptations. If he idealizes her, he may fall in love too quickly, chasing a fantasy rather than seeing the real person in front of him. But when he begins to integrate her, when he allows her to live within him without shame, he becomes capable of loving with depth, with presence, and with truth. And this is where you come in. Not to be his anima, not to complete him, but to reflect back the parts of him that are already there, waiting to be seen. He will not say it, but when he meets a woman who is deeply connected to herself, who is emotionally present, intuitively aware, unapologetically real, something inside him stirs. It's not just attraction. It's recognition. He doesn't just see you. He sees a version of himself he has been disconnected from. This is why some men feel overwhelmed around certain women. It's not because the woman is too much. It's because her presence awakens a part of him that he has been trained to suppress. And when that happens, he may pull away. Not because he does not care, but because he is not ready to feel that much, to face that part of himself. So what does it mean to call forth the anima in him? It means showing up in your own fullness, without apology. It means allowing yourself to feel deeply, speak truthfully, and remain grounded in your own body. It means not dimming your light to keep him comfortable, but it also means not demanding that he meet you there before he is ready. The anima is not awakened through force. She is awakened through resonance. When you live in alignment with your own inner feminine, your intuition, your emotion, your creativity, you create a field in which his anima can safely emerge. It may start subtly, He begins to listen more deeply. He opens up in ways he never has. He asks questions about his own emotions. He becomes curious, not defensive. He starts to feel things that he cannot name. And in your presence, he begins to soften, not in a weak way, but in a deeply human way. But be warned. If you try to control this process, if you try to become his therapist, his guide, his emotional savior, you may unconsciously block the very awakening you hope to inspire. Because the anima does not respond to pressure, she responds to permission. You are not here to heal him. You are here to embody your truth so fully that he remembers he has one too. Let me tell you about a woman I knew. She did not speak loudly. She did not chase. She did not try to prove anything. But when she walked into a room, people felt something shift. She saw people, not their status, not their story, but their essence. She laughed without trying to be liked. She cried without apology. She listened without judgment. And when a man sat across from her, he did not feel evaluated. He felt reflected. One man told her later, "You didn't say much, but I heard myself for the first time." That is the power of the anima. Most relationships fail not because of lack of love, but because people keep trying to fix each other rather than reflect each other. They want change without presence, intimacy without vulnerability, connection without courage. But when a man meets a woman who knows who she is, not just intellectually, but in her bones, she may resist her, fear her, even try to minimize her. Not because she is wrong, but because she reminds him of everything he has buried. And if he is ready or even just willing, he will begin to open. Not because she makes him, but because something in him wants to meet her there. Not just for her, but for himself. The anima is not about making a man more feminine. It's about making him more whole. It's about restoring balance to a psyche that has been trained to live on one side of the spectrum for too long. And the only way he finds that balance is by being in the presence of someone who holds both strength and softness. Someone who does not need him to be anything, but invites him to be everything he already is. This kind of love is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not based on who texts first or who says, "I love you" faster. It is based on energy, on depth, on quiet moments where masks fall and truth rises. So if you want to touch his soul, don't just try to understand him. Understand yourself, deeply, fiercely, unapologetically. Because your relationship with your own inner world becomes the mirror through which he learns to navigate his. And one day, if you are patient and present, you may witness something beautiful. You may watch him become someone even he didn't know he could be, not because you changed him, but because you showed him a part of himself that he had forgotten. That is the beginning of soul-deep love. Not two people completing each other, but two people awakening what was asleep and choosing, every day, to keep the light on. Sometimes, what he feels for you is not love. It looks like love. It sounds like love. But underneath, it is something else. It is a hunger, a reaching, a silent plea for something that was lost long before you ever came into his life. Carl Jung called this projection the act of placing unconscious content onto another person, believing they are the source of what you feel, when in fact, they are only the mirror. This is where many women get trapped. You meet a man. There is intensity. He says you are different. He tells you that he feels safe, that you understand him like no one else. And for a while, everything feels real. But then, something shifts. He pulls away. He becomes distant, confused, or even cold. You wonder what you did wrong. You replay conversations. You try harder. But the truth is, he never fell in love with you. He fell in love with a missing piece of himself that he saw in you. A piece that reminded him of a feeling he had long ago, a mother's warmth, a sense of safety, a presence that once felt like home but eventually vanished. This is what it means to touch the void in him. Every man carries a wound. It might not be visible. He might not talk about it, but it lives inside him like a ghost. A silent absence that follows him into adulthood, into relationships, into the way he loves. Sometimes it is the absence of affection. Sometimes it is the presence of conditional love. Sometimes it is abandonment wrapped in the illusion of protection. And when he meets a woman who radiates presence, who feels familiar in a way he cannot explain, something stirs. Not because she is his soulmate, but because she is his substitute. She becomes the symbolic resolution to a wound he never healed. This is why some men are drawn so powerfully to certain women. Not because of compatibility, but because of resonance. You don't just attract him, you activate him. You remind him of something he lost and has been trying to reclaim without even knowing it. But here is the danger. If you mistake his longing for love, you will try to fill the void. You will give more. You will try to be perfect, to be everything he needs. And in doing so, you will lose yourself. Because no matter how much you give, it will never be enough. Not because you are not enough, but because the void is not yours to fill. When a man is caught in projection, he is not relating to you. He is relating to an imagined fantasy, an echo of someone who shaped his emotional world long ago. And if he has not done the inner work to recognize this, he will unconsciously expect you to soothe the pain that you did not cause. You will feel responsible for his happiness. You will feel guilty when he is upset. You will feel confused when he pushes you away after pulling you in. And you may start to believe that love is supposed to feel like effort, like sacrifice, like saving someone from themselves. But real love does not feel like that. Real love is not about becoming the remedy to another person's wound. It is about being a mirror that reflects the truth, not a mask that hides it. So how do you break the cycle? You recognize the difference between connection and projection. You pay attention to the patterns. Does he love you, or does he need you? Is he present with who you are now, or is he clinging to how you made him feel at the beginning? You ask yourself the hard questions. Am I showing up as a whole person, or am I playing a role in someone else's unresolved story? You step back from the urge to rescue. You allow space for discomfort. You let him feel the ache that he has spent years avoiding, without trying to fix it for him. And most of all, you stay rooted in yourself. Because when you know your own worth, you stop offering yourself as a solution to someone else's emptiness. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who fell in love with a man who said all the right things. He told her she made him feel alive again, that she reminded him of something he had forgotten. But soon, she noticed a pattern. When she was nurturing, he clung to her. When she set boundaries, he withdrew. When she spoke her truth, he felt rejected. She realized he wasn't seeing her. He was seeing the mother who never listened, the woman who left, the comfort he never got to keep. She was just playing a role in his unconscious drama. And no matter how much she loved him, she could not rewrite his past. So she stopped trying. She stopped being the fantasy. She started being herself. And when he saw her clearly not as the answer, not as the comfort, but as a human, he had to make a choice, to either begin his own healing or to walk away in search of another mirror. This is the point where many relationships end. But it is also the point where real love begins. Because if he chooses to stay not for the comfort, not for the illusion, but for the truth, then something deeper can grow. Not from the need to be saved, but from the desire to be seen. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." But love, real love, asks us to stop running, to stand still, to face the emptiness not as something to escape, but as something to understand. So if you want to touch a man's soul, don't try to fill the space inside him. Let him feel it. Let him meet it. Be the woman who doesn't try to become everything he needs, but who shows him that he already has what he is looking for if he is willing to go within. Because the deepest kind of love is not about possession. It is about awakening. And sometimes, awakening begins with the one thing most people avoid, the feeling of what has always been missing. Real love is not about holding tighter. It is about holding space. Most people think that if someone pulls away, they must chase. If someone becomes distant, they must close the gap. But what if love, the kind that touches a man's soul, is not about clinging but about allowing? What if the most powerful thing you can do for someone is to let them become who they were always meant to be? Carl Jung believed that every human being is on a journey toward individuation, the process of becoming whole, becoming fully themselves, separate from the roles and projections placed on them by others. And in relationships, especially romantic ones, this process often gets disrupted. Because people don't just want love, they want safety. And sometimes they trade authenticity for security. They become who their partner needs them to be, instead of who they truly are. This is where many relationships quietly break. A woman falls in love with a man not just for who he is, but for who he could be. She sees potential. She sees depth. She believes that with enough love, he will grow. And he does for a while. He becomes softer, more open, more expressive. But then something shifts. He starts to feel the weight of expectation, the subtle pressure to keep transforming for someone else. He begins to feel like he is no longer free. And in that moment, he pulls away. Not because he no longer cares, but because deep down, he knows that he cannot become whole if he is constantly being shaped by someone else's idea of who he should be. This is the paradox of intimacy. To truly love someone is to let them be free. Free to doubt, free to fall apart, free to explore, free to change in ways that may not always include you. It sounds counterintuitive. We are told that love means showing up, staying close, holding on. But sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to take a step back, not as punishment, but as permission. Permission for him to breathe, to hear his own voice, to face his own questions without your answers, drowning them out. Because a man's soul cannot fully emerge if it is always being held in place by someone else's need for reassurance. So what does this look like in real life? It looks like not needing constant validation. It looks like being okay with silence. It looks like resisting the urge to rescue him every time he struggles. It looks like standing in your own truth while allowing him to find his. And it means understanding this. You are not the author of his transformation. You are the witness. The most transformative relationships are not the ones where we fix each other. They are the ones where we hold up a mirror not to judge, not to control, but to reflect, so he can see himself clearly, so he can choose his own path. That kind of love is rare, because it requires emotional maturity. It requires the strength to be whole on your own. It requires the courage to walk beside someone without needing to walk for them. When a man feels that kind of space, when he knows that your love is not conditional on his performance, his progress, or his predictability, something inside him relaxes. He stops performing. He starts listening. He begins to connect with a part of himself that is unedited, unfiltered, unafraid. And in that space, he can grow. Sometimes that growth will draw him closer to you. Sometimes it will lead him away. But either way, you will have given him a gift that most people never receive, the freedom to become who he truly is. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who loved a man deeply. He was intelligent, passionate, but also restless. He was searching for something he couldn't name. She could feel it. She wanted to help. She wanted to guide him, hold him, keep him from falling. But something inside her whispered, wait, don't fix him. Don't follow him. Just love him enough to let him go where he needs to go. So she did. She stayed present, but not invasive. She listened, but did not advise unless asked. She loved him, but did not try to shape him. Months passed. He changed. He made mistakes. He pulled away. But through it all, she stayed rooted in herself. Not waiting, not hoping, just honoring her own path while allowing him to walk his. And then one day, he returned. Not as a broken man needing to be saved, but as a man who had met himself. A man who had finally stood still long enough to hear his own voice. He told her, you didn't try to change me. You didn't demand anything from me. And somehow, that made me want to become someone better. Not for you, but because you showed me I could. That is what it means to love and let be. Because love that demands change is not love. It is control. Love that fears distance is not love. It is attachment. Real love is brave. It trusts the process. It holds without gripping. It supports without suffocating. Jung once wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And sometimes the person who helps you do that is not the one who gives you direction, but the one who gives you space. So if you want to touch a man's soul, don't make him into your project. Don't make his growth your mission. Trust his path. Trust yours. And if those paths align, it will not be because you forced it. It will be because you both chose it, freely and fully. That is the kind of love that lasts. Not the love that tries to mold, but the love that sets free and trusts what returns. Maybe the deepest way to love a man is not to chase him, not to convince him, and not to prove that you are worthy of being chosen. Maybe the deepest way to love a man is to be the space where he can finally choose himself. When you stop trying to fix him he begins to heal. When you stop trying to complete him, he realizes he was never broken. When you stop demanding love on your terms, he learns how to love on his own. You are not here to be his answer. You are here to remind him that he already has the questions and the strength to face them. If you have ever loved a man and felt like you were reaching, giving, bending just to feel seen, then this message is for you. You were never too much. You were simply in the presence of someone who had not yet met the part of himself that could receive what you offered. But now you know. You know that love is not about control. It is about presence. You know that touching a man's soul means meeting him in his shadow, in his silence, and in the sacred space where he is still finding his voice. You know that what he needs is not someone to carry him, but someone who can walk beside him while he carries himself. And most of all, you know that your worth is not defined by how much he loves you. It is defined by how deeply you love yourself while loving him. So here is the invitation. Before you try to win his heart, ask yourself, are you ready to meet his soul? Are you willing to see the parts of him that are unpolished, unspoken, unfinished? Are you strong enough to let him go, not out of anger, but out of trust? Because that kind of love does not come from fear. It comes from freedom. And the men who are ready for that kind of love, they don't just stay. They rise. They evolve. They become. So if any part of this message touched you, made you pause, or helped you see your love differently, tell me. Share your story. Let someone else know they are not alone. And if you want more conversations like this, if you want to go deeper into what it means to love consciously, to connect beyond the surface, then stay with me. Because this journey is only beginning. Real love begins when we stop running from ourselves and start returning to each other with eyes wide open.